Begin, of course, here in Germany with this news that a car has plowed into a crowded Christmas market. Media reports now say at least 11 people have been killed and scores more injured. The incident happened in the eastern city of Magdeburg in Saxony-Anhalt state. The driver of the car has been arrested, and local officials say it was probably an attack. Well, eyewitnesses have said the car drove straight into the crowd and across the market near the city hall. Emergency services have been treating victims at the scene, and ambulances took others to nearby hospitals. Let's get the very latest from our correspondent here in Berlin. Simon Young, what more can you tell us?
Claire, horrific scenes emerging from the city of Magdeburg this evening, with clearly dozens of people injured. Some reports say as many as 80 people injured, many of them seriously. And we've seen the scenes of with large numbers of ambulances and paramedics there treating people, taking them away. The hospitals have been put on alert in the whole region to deal with the aftermath of this attack. And as you mentioned, several German media outlets now have reported that there are 11 dead, and we don't know whether that number might go up in the course of the evening, sadly. Now, police say they have one man in custody. He's the driver of the vehicle, and they've been saying that, in fact, he drove up to 400 metres through this crowded Christmas market where people obviously must have thought that they could be safe. These type of Christmas markets now, after previous attacks, are very well protected generally. So people unsuspecting and the victims of this, what looks like a premeditated attack. Of course, it's far too early to say what might be behind it, what might be the motivation, but police will certainly be investigating that. There's been a certain amount of political reaction as well. Olaf Scholz on X saying that these scenes in Magdeburg are very bad news, and saying that his thoughts, of course, are with the victims and their families.
Simon, thank you so much for that update. Let's turn to those comments from German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, as Simon has just mentioned, his first public remarks on these events in Magdeburg. Now, he's written on X, "The reports from Magdeburg raise the worst fears. My thoughts are with the victims and their families." And we can speak to Hans-Jakob Schindler in Berlin for another perspective. He is an expert on terrorism. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Police have told the broadcaster MDR that they suspect an explosive device was in the car. What could that mean? Could this have been a much bigger tragedy?
Oh, yes. First of all, there has to be a real gap in the security measures for this Christmas market. No vehicle of any size, shape or form should be getting close to any Christmas markets in Germany these days, let alone drive 400 meters through a Christmas market. So there was a gap, but apparently there were gas canisters in the boot of the car. Would the perpetrator have been able to detonate those, we would look at much higher casualty figures because of the shrapnels that would be flying around. It seems to be that the perpetrator is a 50-year-old male from Saudi Arabia, which narrows down a little bit the potential background of this attack. So it cannot conclusively be said that it is very unlikely that it's a right-wing attack. So it's more likely a potentially single perpetrator, maybe a guided, i.e. instigated attack by some Islamist organization. It's not clear by which one yet.
And just to be clear for our audience, could you let us know how we know this information about the suspect, who we also understand has been taken into custody?
Yeah, apparently that's what the police have confirmed.
Okay. Tell us more about what security measures are in place at Christmas markets. Many will be thinking back to the last major attack on a market in Berlin in 2016. What has changed since then?
Well, the attack, tragically, the anniversary in Berlin, the celebrations or the commemorations was just yesterday. And since that time, of course, it was very clear that Christmas markets, as all large gatherings are in not just Germany, in Europe, are a target. We had a vehicle attack in the same year as in Berlin, in the summer, on 14th of July 2016 in Nice, during the Bastille Day celebrations there. So it's clear that you have to physically secure these type of events. And usually they are. So it really bears a big question of how this vehicle could get close and on to the Christmas market.
And for those who are just joining us, were there warnings of attacks on Christmas markets in Germany ahead of this? Would authorities have been looking out for something like this?
Yes, apparently the individual has not been on any terror list or Islamist list, according to the police. However, it is absolutely clear that IS, Al-Qaeda, but also other Islamist groups had threatened attacks on Christmas markets, not just Germany, but anywhere in Europe.
Now, local authorities have said this was probably an attack, if indeed that is confirmed. In your view, as a terrorism expert, whose signature does this bear, would you think?
The problem is the instructional and material. This is a hallmark IS attack. Use your car was one of the messages that IS already put out in 2017. There is instructional material available on social media still, unfortunately. Available on social media on how to do these things. So obviously anyone with an internet access can see this material, and if he or she wants to conduct an attack, learn how to do this. But the specific instigation this year was really IS and other Islamist groups.
Given the widespread availability of instruction manuals, as you suggest, can such attacks like this be prevented? Is there always going to be a risk like something like this could happen in Germany?
The risk of something like this, i.e. a car going over Christmas market, should actually be excluded. If the security concepts work, as they did, for example, the much larger fan miles during the European Football Championship in Germany, nothing can happen because there's physical barriers surrounding this event and surrounding the big group of people. So there must have been a gap here in the physical security measures, potentially because there is some tram that goes through the Christmas market that prevented the whole market to be closed off. But this should not happen. This is a very, very known scenario. This is a scenario that has been tested with security measures to prevent such a thing. There must have been a gap or a mistake.
So, as you mentioned, there was a successful Euros held here in Germany over the summer. You see this then really as a failure of German security to secure this Christmas market despite known risks of an attack?
Unfortunately, it looks that way. I mean, there is, of course, always the potentiality of a single perpetrator, as we have seen tragically in Solingen in the summer, taking a knife. This scenario is extremely hard to prevent, if at all. But taking a car on a Christmas market is really, this should be like the one-on-one security measures. This should not have happened.
And just to paint a picture for those watching from home, when one visits a Christmas market in Germany, what kind of security measures would you see or perhaps not see that should be in place to protect people?
Well, there are several layers of security. Number one, there's the physical barriers, and you can see this quite obviously on the street. These are big concrete barriers that prevent exactly a scenario like this. Any vehicle shouldn't be close to any Christmas market at this point of the year. And then there are the less visible ones. There's, of course, a much higher presence of police throughout the market, uniformed and ununiformed, to make sure that if we are talking about a knife attack, the reaction time is minimal. And then, of course, there is the monitoring of the online sphere to make sure that any chatter on a potential attack planning gets picked up. And here we do have legal barriers, continuing legal barriers for the German security services, who, when it comes to these kind of online planned attacks, really largely depend on foreign services, in particular the Americans and other European services, who have the legal framework to monitor these communications far more widely than the German security services.
And we do just have an update coming in. The state premier has now confirmed 2 dead, 2 have been killed on this attack on the Christmas market in Magdeburg. Hans Schindler, what kind of reaction do you expect we might see from authorities going forward?
I mean, first of all, we will have to have a discussion, a very detailed discussion, not necessarily a public one, on what were the security measures and how did this car get onto the Christmas market. I think that's number one. Number two, of course, the police is now making sure that this is hopefully just a single perpetrator, but having an explosive device or gas canisters in the car could potentially mean he had help and there is a small network. Then we will have to have a discussion on what are we going to be able to do to go forward to prevent things like this. The physical presence need to be increased. Of course, we need to, again, continue to discuss what are the abilities and the legal abilities of the security services to monitor online chatter, to also pick up perpetrators, as this seems to have been, who are not already known to the police. And then third, I'm afraid there's going to be a bit of a political fallout if the nationality of the perpetrator is confirmed, and this is indeed an Islamist background. We are going to have again a migration debate, something exactly what the terrorists, if this is a organized terrorist attack, want to achieve. Polarization, fear of the population, and the political class getting at each other's throats is exactly what they're aiming to achieve with such attacks.
Well, thank you so much for joining us with your expertise. That is a terrorism expert, Hans Jakob Schindler. We appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you very much.
And back across to our correspondent, Simon Young in Berlin for an update. Simon, what more can we say at this stage?
Well, Claire, just bringing together what we've already been reporting, clearly what looks like, very much looks like, a deliberate attack against the Christmas market in the city of Magdeburg. It's a city of 500,000 people, the capital of the eastern state of Saxony-Anhalt. And this Christmas market was being held right in the centre of town. Many families, many people there this Friday evening just before Christmas, and a car that travelled, well, police are saying at least 400 metres through this market. So clearly a massive security breach that has left, well, media reports are varying and new numbers are coming out, I should say, all the time. This is still very much a breaking story, but at least 2 dead and perhaps some more, according to many media reports. Certainly, I think we can say there are many people injured, many of them seriously. Hospitals in the city and indeed in the whole region are on alert to receive people and are already dealing with some of the injured. It looks like a deliberate attack, and as we've been saying, this will undoubtedly prompt another resurgence of the debate about what Germany needs to do to try and secure its population in the face of terror incidents, if this is what this turns out to be.
Simon, as you say, a second person confirmed dead after that driver plowed into the German Christmas market. Thank you for your reporting and bringing us up to speed with the very latest from Berlin.